October is Polish Heritage Month, and a college in Chicopee is helping to preserve the Polish culture right here in Western Mass. That's just one of the stops we take as Western Mass News goes town by town. The Polish Center of Discovery and Learning at Elms College is a living monument that celebrates the many contributions, both past and present, made by Polish people and their descendants. We're told the mission of the center is to preserve objects representative of the material culture of the Polish people in America by offering a variety of workshops, exhibits, concerts, and cultural traditions. Over at Agawam, Autumn Mist Farm, the new farm-to-table restaurant in Feeding Hills, officially celebrated their grand opening today. The new restaurant can be found on Westfield Street, right where the old 911 Burgers used to be located. And lastly, in West Springfield, the Artists at the Crossroads, a group of professional artists from Western Mass and Northern Connecticut, will be showcasing their art at the West Side Library during the month of October. Artists include West Springfield residents Lynn Miller and Sue Newman. The exhibit will include a variety of mediums with many pieces for sale. Artwork can be seen during regular library hours through Halloween, October 31st.